Good afternoon. My name is Jensen Zhang. I'm the Executive Director of the Center Syracuse Center of Excellence in Environmental Energy Systems. And welcome to this Spring Research and Technology Forum, which we try to host once every month. I know we also have many people joining on the web. I don't know how many people we have. Also welcome those people. I know we have people from International Energy Agency's Annex 78 project. So I cannot see you, but welcome to join us. So this seminar is going to highlight a major research project collaboration between Syracuse University and Honeywell International, which look at basically three objectives. And one is to develop a comprehensive test method to evaluate different types of air cleaning technologies, and a comprehensive meaning that the method should be able to evaluate different types of technologies, but also for different types of pollutants and under realistic environmental conditions. And you will see the results from the first two presentations. And second objective of this project is to develop an intelligent control method, like whether it's a physics-based modeling approach or machine learning AI-based approach for predictive control, or model predictive control, to optimize the ventilation, air cleaning, and also based on the occupants and occupant behavior, occupant reaction. So that's the second objective, is to develop a control method, advanced control method. Third objective is to try to tie these two things together, air cleaning technology, control methodologies, and to see what's the impact of these controls and air cleaning methodologies on the human performance, including the task performance, the productivity, and also the productivity, and also the perceived environmental quality based on the occupant survey and test. So that third objective is still ongoing, so that is our third year emphasis. So today you can hear three presentations, and the first two will cover the test methods, and also some visual results for different areas. So without further ado, I will first introduce our first speaker, Zhenlei Liu. He is a Ph.D. candidate at SU, and he has been with SU for probably 6 years now, receiving his master's degree from the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering, and continuing on his Ph.D. studies. And he has been involved in several research projects, including 3 International Energy Agency projects related to indoor air quality. One is the Annex 68 on the indoor air quality for low energy buildings, and 86, continuing on that, also indoor air quality management and control methodologies, and Annex 78. I know we have a lot of people from Annex 78 on the web, international. And his work is primarily focused on the emission control, material emissions. The emissions include both the primary emission from building materials, furnishings, and occupants, but also include secondary emissions that due to reaction between ozone and all those. And so which is modeling, its most recent work is focused on modeling the indoor air chemistry as reaction and how they impact the secondary emissions, as well as looking at the similarity and develop similarity theory between the volatile compounds transport and the molecule transport. So without further ado, let's welcome Zhenlei Liu.
Thank you. Thank you, Siri and Syracuse University for offering me this opportunity to share the project research with all of you. And for coming today. So my topic is about the performance of various energy technologies. This presentation will focus on the method and also the results of the VOC and the particulates. So this project is the multiple groups involved in this method. These are lab and the VR lab, because this is combined the study of the VOC and particle and the bioorganics, and also have the control algorithm integrated. So this presentation only covers the VOC and particles. So first is talking about the objective of this study. So for this research, we evaluated air cleaners under a realistic condition. So I'm talking about realistic condition, which means as same as what we're using the air cleaner, which is a steady state condition, and also it is the challenge concentration of the air cleaner is the same as what we detected indoor, and typically it is we just exposure kind of condition. And also that is for real environment, we have the coexisting contaminants. That is multiple VOCs and also may coexist with fungi, bacteria, or the other inorganic chemicals like the ozone and the radicals. So we just try to mimic this situation and test the air cleaner under this condition. So the second part is we will show you the results of how we obtained it from the test method. So first, let's talk about the existing test method. So again, for this test, I mean, we proposed a new method, but it doesn't mean we will replace the existing method. We just adding on it to see what we can obtain from this kind of modular condition. So the existing standard is covered a lot from the software media, how to have the filter, and also for different type of the pollutants. It also has some specific standard, like for example, the ACAM BC-4 and BC-5 that is recently published last year. And for our test, we selected the decay test, which is commonly for the possible air cleaner, and compared with the real indoor condition. Like first, the pollutant source, the decay test we just injected at the very beginning and see how fast it can decay in the reference condition and with the using of the air cleaner. So that is the pulse injection, not a stable concentration of the pollutants. Which also due to this method, they have very high initial chemical concentration. We should maintain it over a threshold. Let's challenge the performance of the air cleaner. Also, due to the test method, there is a lot of the setting of chamber for this method. Like for example, it is the airtight chamber, and which for because it's airtight and it is decay test, so we are focused on the transit area. So, but it's also for the real indoor condition. It is a ventilation, it is a steady state, both steady state and the transit. So this is to illustrate the limitation of the existing test method. So we need to propose a new one. So for the new proposed test method, we focus on how to simulate a real condition for the air cleaner, which, as I mentioned, it is a way perform it under a steady state, which is well controlled, has room, and also have the typical indoor interior surface, which is may associate with the surface separation, and the emission source, the emission are stable, which is as same as what we at home. The exposure chemical concentration and which is much lower than the decay test, and it is the same as the typical building. And also this method is ability as opposed to chamber at steady state. I will show you the result later and will show you what we obtained. So this is based on this idea. So we back in this chamber and to make sure we have achieved this simulated condition. So here is an environmental control chamber. We can control the temperature, humidity, ventilation of this chamber. And inside the chamber, we build a room, which is a small room, like 30 cubic meters. And we place a table, laptop, and many inside to mimic the emission from the human and under this condition. The surface was covered by the floor is covered by the carpet, and the ceiling and the wall is a 26 wallboard. So everything is realistic. So we injected the pollutants at the supply air and diffused into the space like it will distributed by the diffuser, and also to further make sure it will meet conditions to mix it back at the corner to both like the air circulating and will meet conditions. The sample was collected at the return air, which we presented the average concentration of in the room. So based on this the test setup, we have all the equipment we use for the particle generation, VOC generation, VOC sampling, particle sampling, ozone monitoring, and also here the manager is the stewardship. And during the test we put a clothes on the soil clothes, which is with the heating it can be made from VOCs from like us from the human skin. Here in the chamber, it's the giant chamber which is walkable and will be here is the test feature. So we talked about it's different, so we test it under the steady state. So we collected 3 samples. All the 3 samples were under the steady state. The first is the background. That's just only the building materials and furniture in it, which is our baseline. Later on, we start to inject the VOC and the particles. So, and we also, the second presentation will give you some results of the virus with the particle, and we also inject it as well. So the second sample was collected at the steady state for the first injection to say, okay, what is the challenge concentration right before we turn on the air cleaner. Third sample was collected after we turn on the air cleaner, it will reach to the second steady state. Okay, sample here. So by comparing with 2 conditions, we can obtain the performance of air cleaner. So what is the reduction of the different pollutants? Also, during this test, I listed an example of the ozone. So for some electronic air cleaners, it may have the ozone generated. So if it has, we will detect it during this period and to quantify what is the emission rate of ozone. So for another some additional quality control steps, we can include it. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So including the ozone detection to quantify the ventilation rate and also other quality control steps. Here on the right-hand side, that is an example of data from this test. So we have the green line of the particle, so we have the particle injected, which reach to certain challenge concentration for air cleaner, and after we turn it on, it came very fast. So the dots show the we collected for VOC samples under the steady state, and this triangle is the virus, and we will show you the result in the presentation. The blue line shows this for this particular air cleaner of ozone generated, and we were able to detect it. Here is all the air cleaners we selected. We totally selected 10 air cleaners to cover the different air purification technologies. All of them are portable air cleaners, so this is a combination of the different technologies. So we use the name to indicate what technologies are using. For example, the GH, it is represent physical absorption and HEPA filter. And the order indicated along the aerosol, which is the first layer. For this case, it is the absorption first and then HEPA filter. So for other air cleaners, they use the HEPA filter first and then the absorption. So this is how we name the air cleaner. So we cover totally 16 technologies, which including the HEPA filter, electrolytic, purification, ionization, and the plasma. Two absorption technologies that is inhibitor for the gases filters, that is the physical absorption and chemical absorption. UVPCO is to alter the chemicals, legal chemicals. This slide is like showing the results from these 10 air cleaners. So here is the result for the PM2.5. So during the test, we brought it in this way that on the yellow dot is presented the air cleaner, the non-technology to remove particles is the mechanical filter. And the green presented is the ionization technology to remove the particles. And this two is the electrolytic purification. And in this test, we figured there are two ways we can achieve a high ADR in technologies. One is the single application. Along this one, this air cleaners, they have a similar total flow rate, but with the increasing of the single applications, the ADR increasing and the continuing. The second way is by increasing the total flow, because it's total flow is the KDR proportional to the total flow. And for this reason, we compare this two air cleaner from the side indicating the total flow, and they have a similar single application, but by increasing this increase a lot. And for this air cleaner, with the same model, the same air cleaner, just the two modes. The one is high flow rate mode and low flow rate mode, which can significantly increase the KDR. So from these results, there are two ways commonly to achieve a high KDR, and we didn't see any difference between the HEPA filter and the ionization technology of the electrostatic filtration. So it's fully depends on the design of this basic air cleaner. But about the second step, if we increase the total flow of the air cleaner, we need to have a trade-off between the total energy consumption and the flow, because we can increase the fan power, but we cannot increase it for to very high. We need to consider the energy. So during this test, we tested the total flow rate and the power supply to these 10 air cleaners. Obviously, with increasing the total flow rate, the increasing of the energy consumption. So that is the balance we need to figure out for to design the air cleaner. This slide, we are finished about the particle concentration and chemical performance. So now we move to the chemical pollutants. So this figure shows we have selected two target music compounds, formaldehyde and polyurethane. So this figure shows the reduction of these two compounds. If it's selective, it means it has certain it has generated some particles, and it positively has the reduction of the compound. So during this test, we figured the most of the air cleaner it has effective on the tolerant removal. The median value is 18%. And the best, which has a lot of absorption media, like the active carbon, they just use a lot of amounts, so it has achieved about 70, which is a significant removal of tolerance. And for most of the air cleaners, it's not very effective to remove formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is also a research step. We need to develop more technologies to can remove formaldehyde effectively. And for the UV, the air cleaner with the UV system and our has used very high voltage, which can generate the indoor oxidation. It can generate formaldehydes. Here is the results of the we will talk about the two target concentration we selected. And this slide we're talking about all the other uses. We didn't list them one by one, but just found the total we receive. So compared with the total we receive, all of the air cleaners expected to show a very significant reduction of the other VOCs. And there are only two that show more removal performance, but it's based on the uncertainty, typically uncertainty of the test method. I mean, test method I mentioned about measure VOC, we typically have so the conclusion is none of the air cleaners can generally cause removal of other VOC metabolites. This one will just a little bit about the virus latent particle. So we have a test and to show the performance of the air cleaner, how effective it can remove this. So all the air cleaners can remove at least one log reduction, which means remove 90% of the virus latent particles, and also it can deactivate the virus, which means to let it lose the infectious. That is also another one log reduction. So it's very effective and my colleague Eloise will present more in the second presentation. So I included here because we found another phenomenon that is the correlation between the particle concentration and viral load. We tested this with the virus latent particle, and we collected the sample and we analyzed this one. This is a certain correlation between this. This is the high particle concentration indicated a higher viral load in this space. And for this finding, we definitely need further study, but it gave us insight about it. We can use sometimes we can use a PM2.5 as an indicator to indicate in this contaminated condition how dangerous people exposure under the virus. And the second question will be more information about this correlation. So here is a summary of this presentation. So we proposed a new test method and conducted 10 tests, including 10 air cleaners under this condition. And we in the tested air cleaners, we didn't see any bias between the HVAC filter and the electrostatic filtration. They have the same performance to remove the PM2.5. The physical absorption filters for active carbon feel the most effective way to remove most of the disease. All the air cleaners which can remove the virus latent particle and also inactive the virus, which is good for under this pandemic. So that's mentioned the last slide, we have a correlation between the particles and viral load, which is in the study, but it is very encouraging to have this at the index to show the indoor air quality. So here is all of my presentation, and thanks for all the attention. It's a Q&A session. Any questions?
Yeah, I can take a few quick questions first, then we move to the next presentation. I think after all three presentations, we still have some time to ask questions.
So on your last slide, we showed that the 90% removal and 99 inactivation and inclusion. So how did you separate whether they were inactivated or removed?
Oh yes, this will covered in the second presentation. Yeah.
I'm actually get two questions. The first one is you talked about removal of VOCs as chemical carbon filters. So I'm making the assumption that you are going to remove carbon filters, and if you do anything to test their decay over time, particularly the decay in those types of exposures.
Oh yeah, that's a very good question. Yes, during this test, we tested it brand new, so we didn't have the aging effect of the active filter. I mean carbon filter. Yeah.
I think that would be a really interesting to know, because I think there is depending on the challenge, of course, figure out the K, that's exactly how it works, right? Of course, gas, and then you can't do it more. So I think that would be interesting. The second comment is I noticed that you, at least in the schematic, when you're talking about more amount of the air cooling, you mix in the fans, you mix the space. But that's not a very realistic scenario, right? And so I think that one of the challenges that we've always had concerns over with these floor mounted units is they actually don't move air up in the breathing zone or up through the room. You sort of get stuck in a circle around that air cleaner. So I think if you're going to publish efficacy of the cleaner, you've got to be very careful in that it may not adequately mix the room to the method that you challenged.
Yeah,
You may not get that efficacy. That's my point.
yes, very good question. Yes, it is. So like all the air cleaners, they will label the capacity of it, which means how big it can serve the room. And the well-mixed condition in our realistic condition, it is the issue we need to consider is the locally clean of the like entire room. But in this test method, is the chamber test, we don't want out the sample we collected have a bias. Like the location is to indicate the different performance. So we included the mixing fan to represent the average condition. So, but you are right. This is it's different.
Maybe I can shift on right here.
Sure.
I think that the methodology in terms of air cleaner evaluation, we call it model-based testing evaluation. So in the testing here, the focus is on evaluating a single contribution to clean air delivery from air cleaner. In order to get accurate number, we have to make sure the conditions are well mixed. But your question is very important. Okay, so if you want to address the real environment, then we will take those data, plug into a model, like basically like computational fluid dynamics model, which will give us the spatial distribution of the contaminant concentration. So that I think that would address your question about okay, what happens in the real environment, how much air provides it. So that's another modeling effort. So that in terms of space condition, air distribution. That's your second question. The first question about it's more about the service, right? If you have more carbon, according to the last one, again, that requires another model, right? So the chamber test shows the initial performance of the air filter. But then you take a model, actually even one of the tasks of the international agency, IEA Annex 78 project, that will contribute in modeling to basically service life based on their design. How much solvent in the air cleaners, how much airflow rate goes through that, and how long it lasts. So that needs to be evaluated by the model as well. And then I think the validation of the model, of course. So those questions are great, and we need to rely on a model and as well as thank you. Any questions?
The only other one we presented, just curious relative to the models that we use. I can understand that one is published brand new, so model knows where is that something you know that's something.
Yeah, so good question. I think well, these are we don't want to like we're trying to minimize the commercialism in this kind of forum, and so we can discuss. We focus on technology. Yeah, we don't get into who these words. But I think we can discuss separately what are the needs, and get a particular interest in technology.
Oh, okay, sorry. Thanks. So yeah, basically, yes, we can talk separately and see what are the issues that we have this.
Jensen, along with that comment, I recognize the need not to mention the brand, like back in previous COVID, what you mentioned branch of technology gets together. Did you confirm that the technology were in fact the same? In other words, were they all actually 99.99 HEPAs or 99 HEPAs, or I mean, did you confirm that the efficacy of the devices within? That's the only way you would actually say technologies. That's essentially the assumption they made.
Yeah, I think that we don't get into the component.
So I need to say, I caution you to be a little careful about it, because the word HEPA is used rather liberally. World. So it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing, right? Unfortunately.
So that, I think the data show if that results show that the product is HEPA doesn't perform as well as we expected, the name is not the real HEPA.
Right, or just the lower end.
Well, the other variable surface area of that.
Right, it's other than that. But I think this here, the main objective of this part of the project is to develop a methodology that can be applied uniformly to different, different technologies, so we can compare apples to apples using certain aspects.
You mentioned that we can use like high-end sensors, or we can use general and more, readily available more off the shelf, right?
Well, you saw a lot of things that particularly measure particle size distribution, more research grade sensors. Okay, so I think we should move to the next question in the chat. I don't know if you have any questions. Any questions from the? No questions from the group? Okay. Okay, yeah, let us know if there's a question from that. Great question, thank you. And with that, I'll introduce another co-PI for this project, Professor Dacheng, professor in the Biomedical and Chemical Engineering Department and Ph.D. Next week. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I come here.
Yeah.
So I'm Zhenlei Liu, professor in Biomedical and Chemical Engineering. Also, I'm associate dean for research and graduate programs. I believe our office has reached out to some of you to help with the research day on this Friday. Thank you for everyone who volunteered to help us. Look forward to see you over there as well. In terms of the next speaker, that's my student, Ph.D. student, Eloise Parry-Nweye. She has been with us since the fall of 2019. So this part is also a bit, you can say coincidence, but also sort of means to happen for the pandemic. Actually, for that research that we do in my postdoc research. I got to know Eloise in a conference, I forgot where was it, in 2018. So I was impressed by a student giving a really nice talk there. Turned out to be a junior undergrad student from Pittsburgh. So I had a chance to talk to her because actually her graduate there was my former PhD student, not a star faculty there. So I was really happy that she applied to us and we were able to recruit her to our PhD program. And soon after she started, the pandemic came and made sense to think about viral stuff. So my lab been working with microbes since I came here in 2006, primarily on bacteria and fungi. I didn't do much about viral studies. But Jensen and I have been collaborating on and off, sort of. So when this virus came and asked me that I can do something about virus, we started to have ideas. And then since then, she has been important to the program and work on this viral transmission in the indoor air environment. So without further long introduction, it's the first time.
Let's speak about relationship of making microphones. Don't worry too much. Okay. All right. Hi everyone. I just want to say thank you for taking this time out of your busy schedules to be here with us and hear about the great work that we've been doing over the past couple of years. So my colleague Zhenlei, he's done a great job in presenting the results for the air cleaner performance, so removing VOCs and aerosol particles in air. But I'll be zooming in more on the virus removal performance of these same air cleaning technologies. All right, so here I am showing an overview of the work that we conducted towards the virus aspect of this project. And so we started out by evaluating the sampling methods for the virus in the air, and also establishing robust sampling methods for the virus on surfaces. And then we took these sampling methods that we've established, as well as our developed novel test method, to assess the virus suppression efficacy of the various air cleaning technologies. And then we also did some validation work to basically assess how well this virus is being distributed within the chamber. We received a question from the last presentation regarding the well-mixed nature of this aerobiology chamber that we use. So I'll be shedding some more light on how the virus was basically distributed within this same space. And then we also answered some interesting research questions, looking at the correlation to the particle concentration and the viral load, as well as how the virus interacts with different surfaces, zooming in more on the material properties, and also looking at the virus and the VOCs interaction. As we know in the field of indoor air quality, VOCs are a very important aspect of the indoor air environment. So we used 5-6 as the coronavirus surrogate for this work. And so don't be scared, it's a safe virus. So it's very structurally similar to coronavirus. As you see on the images, they're both spherical, and they both have an RNA genome, and they both have similar spike proteins that cause infection. And so 5-6, just at the top, is a virus that we use. And this virus is known in the literature to infect bacteria. And so the bacteria that it infects, it's a tomato plant pathogen. So now I'll be going into the results from the air cleaner test that we conducted. So here I show that using our test method, we actually found that the air cleaning technologies effectively reduce the viral load in air by 1 to 2 logs. And so if you walk with me, the lighter bars are in the absence of the air cleaner, while the darker bars are in the presence of the air cleaner. And we see that we do have sufficient reduction in the viral load. And at the bottom left here, I show an overview of this test method, just captured in a font-size image. So we would inject the virus for about 5 hours in the absence of the air cleaner, and then we would sample the virus in air for 1 hour. Then we turn on the device, and then we let that run for another 5 hours, and then we sample the air to basically determine the efficacy of the air cleaning technology, so as removing the virus in air. And so those are the results we see here. And we also wanted to explore something slightly different from the original design, whereby we flipped this method by turning on the device from the start of injection, and then we sample the air, and then we turn off the device, and then we sample the air. And so we call that sort of flipped method, and we found that with that other design, we are actually able to capture about 2 logs reduction in the viral load in air. So now in the world of viruses, you have total viral particles, and then within the total particles, you have a portion that are infectious. And so all we show here is the quantified infectious virus, basically showing how well the air cleaning technologies were able to reduce the infectious virus in air. And so we wanted to also answer sort of a small research question using the same air cleaning technology with its UV capability turned off versus the UV capability turned on. And we found something interesting, that we have additional 2 logs reduction in the infectious virus for the same device when its UV capacity is turned on. And then we also established an interesting correlation between the aerosol particle concentration and the viral load. So starting with the upper right quadrant, this would basically, you can look at this as a very high contamination of virus particles in air, versus when we turn on the device, we see that it drifts towards the lower left quadrant. And overall, we see that for a 1 log reduction in the viral load, there's a corresponding 1 log reduction in the aerosol particle concentration. And we are basically now using this as a tool for groups who probably could not afford to quantify or go through the hassle rather of quantifying the virus in air. If they only use the PM 2.5, they can actually also make a sort of a correlation for what they would expect for the same device in terms of reducing the virus concentration in air. And then as a quality control, we quantify the viral genome copies, the viral particles basically that are attached on the aerosol particle. And for this test, considering the fact that the size of the virus we're working with, it's 100 nanometer approximately, and the size of the particle, the aerosol particle, is 1 micron. So we see that the virus particles are 10 times smaller than the aerosol particle. So we would actually expect that to have 1 virus particle per aerosol particle. And so we do see that across the tests that we performed for these studies, we had at least 1 virus particle attached on an aerosol particle. So now we've looked over the virus results, but I want to piggyback a bit on how some optimization work that we did towards developing this test method. So I'll basically start with how we, the method that we use for sampling the aerosolized virus in air. So we started out by optimizing the sampling flow rate, and we tested various flow rates, so 11.5, 9 liters per minute, 6, all the way down to 4. Because we wanted to identify an effective sampling flow rate for capturing the aerosolized particles in there. And so we found that with higher flow rates, you're actually able to capture more virus particles. However, the infectivity of the different flow rates tested is essentially the same. So we decided, because we want to capture more virus particles that are aerosolized, we decided to use the highest flow rates within this design. And so on the right here, we're also showing the aerosol particle concentrations, basically showing the size distribution that we had for this test, showing that we were actually sampling aerosols, because the virus signature aerosols are essentially less than 5 microns in diameter. And then, so that's for sampling the virus that we aerosolized. However, we also want to be able to effectively quantify the virus that's also deposited on surfaces. So we needed to optimize our surface sampling methods. And so the 3 sampling methods that we were investigating towards this study is using swabs. And so the EPA and CDC typically recommend using swabs to sample viruses from surfaces. So that's why we use swabs. And in the literature, it was also shown that polyester swabs could recover non-enveloped MS2 virus about by 40%, retaining 40% infectivity. So we wanted to basically explore these sampling methods towards sampling 5-6 for this study. And due to the sampling limitations of swabbing, we also wanted to compare those results against the polyether sulfone discs, which would simply capture what's the total virus that's been deposited on the same area. And so what I showed there is a pictorial representation showing how we conducted this experiment. We would deposit the virus on the polyether sulfone discs, and we also deposited the virus on stainless steel, use the swabs to pick up the virus for the swabbing experiment, and then we would recover all of the virus that was deposited on the discs in media to quantify the activity and the overall performance of the sampling method. So from the results, we see that across the 3 sampling methods that we used, we were able to recover the same total virus particles as the control. However, with the polyester swab, we found that we lost up to 4 logs of infectivity. And so that was really significant. So we found from this data that we couldn't use the polyester swabs for this virus, although it was fine for MS2, but not for this virus. And so in our study to assess the well-mixed condition in our aerobiology chamber, we use the cotton swab and the polyether sulfate. So I'm just showing a summary of what we just discussed. So now moving on to the well-mixed, looking more into the well-mixed environments within this chamber, I'm showing data about the virus distribution within the chamber. And so to achieve this, we use the same surface, we place the same surface across randomized locations within the chamber. And then we quantify the virus particles that were deposited onto this surface. And so we see from the results that with the two methods, the cotton swab and the polyether sulfate, this sampling methods that we explored, we actually had the same viral load distributed across the different locations that we picked within this chamber. So this was essentially a validation for us in terms of looking into the well-mixed nature of this environment for the virus studies. And then zooming in more on the polyether sulfate discs, we found that whenever we had an increased virus concentration in the air, so this was about log 6, going all the way to log 7, we had a corresponding increase in the virus that were deposited on the discs as we had up to, so going from log 5 from the graph on the left, we see that there's a higher load on the graph on the right. And so the lower bound we established using the polyether sulfate discs was about log 5 versus the upper bound being log 6. And we compared this with what we achieved for using the cotton swabs to sample the virus that were deposited on the randomized locations in the chamber. And we found that the lower bound with the cotton swab was log 4 versus the upper bound being log 6. And so we see that with the lower bound being log 4, that's most likely due to the sampling limitations for this method, because the discs would basically quantify everything that was deposited, hence a higher lower bound. All right, so now we'll be looking more into how the virus interacts with TVOCs in the environment, as most of us are familiar with TVOCs in the built environment. They're typically chemicals like formaldehyde and toluene, and these are inevitably emitted from a lot of building materials that we have within the indoor environment. So we did an experiment where we only injected virus to this 30 cubic meter chamber. And then we also, in the same room and the same conditions, we then also injected the VOCs alongside the virus. And from our data, we found that there wasn't any significant impact on the viral load or the infectivity of the virus particles. So essentially, TVOCs at trace levels, being parts per billion, didn't have a significant impact on the infectivity. However, we wanted to look more into possible threshold concentrations that would actually cause a compromise on the infectivity of the virus. And we found that, so we took the 20 parts per billion concentration in air and found the corresponding concentration in liquid using the Henry's partition coefficient. And we found that at ppb levels, there's no impact on the infectivity. However, when we go all the way up to parts per million concentrations, we can actually lose about 3 logs of infectivity. However, we also want to note that this is for experimental purposes, but we didn't have these concentrations for the studies that were conducted for the air cleaner tests. So far, for the VOCs, we've looked at the way it interacts with viruses in air, but we wanted to zoom in more on how it interacts with the virus that's on surfaces. And so for these experiments, we injected the virus only, and then we had these common surfaces within a chamber, and then we would inject only virus, and then we would inject the virus and a VOC separately in a separate experiment. And so overall, from the results, we found that there wasn't any significant impact on the infective nature of the virus at ppb levels for the virus being deposited on surfaces. But interestingly, we found that for a surface that's been coated with this paint that contains titanium dioxide, you could actually completely lose the effective nature of the virus. And this is commonly used in a lot of, the paint is commonly used in a lot of indoor environments. So basically having an antiviral nature to improve the indoor air quality. And then we wanted to look at how the VOCs would impact the virus load that's being deposited on surfaces. So the gray bars is basically just having the virus only, and then the lighter green bars is the viral load with the VOC injection. And we found that there wasn't any significant impact on the viral load that's being deposited on surfaces in the presence of the VOCs. So far, we talked about the results we had from the air cleaning technologies. We've also looked at the optimization of our sampling methods. We've looked at the VOC interactions. And so now we wanted to also look into how different surface properties would impact the virus survival. So before we did any of these air cleaning tests, we would prepare the virus stock, and we would also sterilize that stock by passaging through filtration membranes to have it very, very sterile. And so what we found is that from the membranes that we evaluated, we generated cellulose, nylon membrane, and mixed cellulose ester, we could recover sufficient virus particles after being passaged through these membranes. However, we did find that the nylon membrane significantly impacted the infectivity of the virus. And this is a positively charged membrane, and the mixed cellulose ester as well is a negatively charged membrane. And with this, we actually completely lost the infective nature of the virus. So we knew not to use the latter two membranes for these tests. And so for the chamber test, we only used the generated cellulose membrane. So what's preparing the stocks that we would inject to conduct these studies. So towards assessing the well-mixed nature of these experiments, we wanted to better understand how the virus actually would behave when it encounters these common touch surfaces that are common in the built environment. And so we looked at the survival on non-porous surfaces, and then we also looked at the survival on porous surfaces. And we found that overall, when the virus encounters non-porous surfaces, being surfaces such as keyboards, stainless steel glass, the infectivity wasn't compromised. However, we found that when it encounters porous surfaces, so surfaces essentially, you could think about these as having a very high moisture absorption capability compared to the non-porous surfaces. We found that we actually lost in 1 to 4 logs whenever the virus encountered these surfaces. And in a more recent, in our most recent concluded research project, we actually found that this was the loss in infectivity was as a result of the disruption in the local humidity within these materials. And then similarly to, we also looked at how the virus behaves on polymer surfaces and found that infectivity was just as fine, similar to how it was on the non-porous surfaces. So in conclusion, using our test method that we developed, we're actually able to effectively quantify the performance of air cleaners towards the viral load in air and infectious virus by at least 1 log for both parameters. And then we also recommend the surface sampling methods of big cotton swabs and the polyether sulfur kits. And we also found that the viability of the virus is significantly influenced by surface properties. The porous nature of the surfaces could actually impact the infectivity due to the disruption in the local humidity. And we also found that electrostatic interactions when the virus encounters charged materials such as the nylon or the mixed cellulose ester, the infectivity could also be significantly compromised. And we also found that titanium dioxide it's a very strong antiviral chemical agent. And we found that trace levels, such as PPD levels of formaldehyde and toluene, have no adverse effect on the viral load and infectivity in air or when the virus on surfaces. And we were also able to establish a strong correlation between the viral load in air and the aerosol particle concentration as those fell within subunit clusters from our data. Thank you.
Any questions? One of the tasks you did. You said you would start the viral load, let it run, and then from the air cleaner on, and then the flip study, you would start the viral air cleaner. How long did you let the viral load run when the air cleaner was on first? The same time frame as when it was the original?
Good question. So the virus is constantly injected. I think I almost mentioned that it's constantly injected throughout the duration of the study.
Okay, I thought you said initially you turned it on for 5 hours, turn it off.
Oh, I see. My apologies.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's important for that. And also, thank you.
Hey, this is Bud Offerman calling, and I'm just curious what the vehicle was for your generation of aerosols. What fluid you were using?
Oh, so the media, it's TSV media.
Okay, so here's the thing. Maybe you could speak to this. It has to do with shielding. So people in UV kind of know about shielding, that pathogens, when you're trying to inactivate them with additive agents like UV or ions or whatever, the expired respiratory droplets are in respiratory fluids that contain a lot of salts and stuff, and they dry really quickly. And the virions are contained inside these particles. So the smaller particle you test, let's say, I think you said 1 or 2 microns in diameter, are easier to inactivate than larger, let's say 5 or 10 micrometer sized particles. Again, with dried respiratory fluids. So I think that's something for both the air tests and for the surface tests, that you address something that's kind of more real life, and that you'd be using simulated respiratory fluids. And ideally, it's the larger size ones you want to be able to demonstrate that you can inactivate, because those are the most difficult ones. So I just thought I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
I see. Thank you for sharing the thoughts. So I think that would be another research question, because the focus for the work that we performed was aerosolizing the virus and basically focusing more on aerosols. But we know in literature that the droplets would be larger than 5 microns. So I think that would be potentially new or a separate research question that we could delve into.
Yeah, it's probably just a good caveat to have that. There's definitely been demonstrated a lot of viral load in particles that are, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 microns in size, and that your tests might the effect of this that you might see on these larger particles may be less.
So James Grieve on the phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is, during the pandemic, I understand a number of buildings went to 100% outside air. Is filtration equally effective for virus mitigation, and what's the energy efficiency difference of outside air versus filtration?
I think that's a question for my colleague, but for our design, it was a well-ventilated environment. So we wanted to simulate the most realistic condition as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I think the energy.
Hi, I'm the Zhenlei.
So for this condition, in the limited condition, and we use the minimum ventilation rate based on the X-ray standard, which is associated with the floor area and the occupancy density in the space. And that gives us about 0.7 in each of the space. And with our test, we are using the portable air cleaner, which it can give us at least 3 times of the equivalent fresh air, which is 25 ADR. And the energy consumption, as I shared, is associated with the basic design of the air cleaner with the virus in terms of fan power we are using and others. So, but in general, as it is from the current results, we think it is widely even more sufficient clean air in the space if we use the purification technology.
Then I think background question. Maybe I should have known this. How do you measure the activity of the bodies?
Good question. So in my earlier slides, I showed that it affects a plant pathogen or bacteria. So we would essentially mix the virus sample with the bacteria and then take that in agar. And then those would form like units of infection that we would quantify and then normalize by the volatiles plated as well as the sample fluorides and the sample period.
Another question. Couple questions. How accurate is the testing of these swabs? Is there any alternative for a more accurate test?
We thought it had a decent level of accuracy because when I showed the lower and the upper bound, I think I could. I'm not sure if I could show. Took me a while, but anyway, so I showed the. 1 second. Okay, so I showed the lower and upper bound for the viral load classification. So essentially the total virus particles are deposited per area. And from the swabbing method, we found that the lower bound is about 4, which is lower than what we would have when we just use the discs, which isn't limited by human sampling. So even though the swabbing method could still recover the same upper bound of 10 to the 6. However, the lower bound was 10 to the 4. So we hypothesized that that's probably due to human sampling limitations. But considering the fact that both sampling methods have the same upper bound of 10 to the 6, so we see that it's still decently accurate because it's the recommended sampling method by EPA and CDC for sampling virus particles from surfaces. So it was still important that we use that same standard practice.
Obviously, you have all kinds of testing for you, right? Swab tests.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some point of consensus with you. And the other question is, it seems that all of the research, which is greatly appreciated, that we need a lot of research
Thank you.
for now. This is mostly focused on portables,
Portable air.
not in.
Correct.
Big difference, right? Different approaches.
Different approaches, but I think getting into the modeling, we look at the fundamental principle of that. So you have different operating conditions, different flow rates, different amount of shorter mediums and all that.
So just one,
Yeah.
I just want to add one point about sampling. I think a lot of the swabs we did in COVID test, we only have positivity. We tell you positive and negative is not quantitative. So you can get pretty good confidence on that, the positive. But this is more quantitative. When you want to go to a number about the logs, that's where you want to see more accuracy. And the sampling this at another layer of this human area window or artifact of the list about how flowery they are, which is going to be.
Thank you. So we move to our third presentation, and with that I'll introduce Professor Zhang, who's my colleague, mechanical and aerospace engineering, a control expert, machine learning expert. Next. Okay. Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zhang. I'm a professor for mechanical and aerospace engineering. My expertise is in the smart controls. So we talk a lot about correlated virus. So what I'm trying to do here is try to balance the energy and the health. A lot of times we know that when we put 10% of our air into the space, we can do a lot of our HVAC systems. So how we can balance the energy functions is this kind of mitigation strategies for quality. My student Xuezheng will do the presentation, and Xuezheng is, I met Xuezheng in 2020 when he was taking my AI machine learning class for 7 years, which I'm teaching every semester. And then Xuezheng joined my group as a controller of the AI expert. So let's welcome Xuezheng.
Thank you for the invitation, and good afternoon, everyone. Today, my presentation is
Right here.
Oh, so today my presentation involves a novel data-driven approach to balancing environmental quality and energy efficiency. So I'd like to start with the energy crisis in the U.S. building sector. From the survey of EIA, the commercial building HVAC systems consume tremendous energy, which account for more than 400 billion kilowatt-hour electricity use. And among such a large energy usage, however, 30% of energy was wasted. And for the reasons for such a large energy waste, what research has indicated that one of the reasons is due to bad building control. So if we want to address energy waste in the building sector, it is not inevitable to develop a better control strategy for HVAC systems. So besides the energy efficiency in the building sector, indoor environmental quality is also important because people spend about 90% of their daily time indoors. And the indoor environmental quality will significantly affect people's health and productivity. Research has demonstrated that when the concentration is more than 700 ppm, indoor carbon dioxide concentration will start to affect people's health. And in the industry reset air standards, it defined 600 ppm as the threshold for indoor carbon dioxide concentration to provide occupants with high performance. There are several insulation factors on indoor environments. For example, in a hot summer, the indoor environment will be degraded by auto condition, equipment, devices, and occupants. Auto weather will increase the temperature, and equipment, devices, and occupants will not only affect the temperature, but also affect the indoor air quality by generating indoor air pollutants. So, to improve the indoor environmental quality, we will need the conditioned air from the HVAC system. So it is natural for us to think if we can control the system accordingly based on those insulation factors. But the fact is that there is no control strategy concerning all the factors that were mentioned. So there are two conflicting interests in the business sector. One is energy efficiency and another is environmental quality. The improvement of one aspect will always do another. So the research question is that can we develop an intelligent control strategy to better balance energy and the IAQ?
To answer this research question, we developed an advanced control framework to balance the two aspects. And here in the framework, the most important part is to develop predictive models. Because if we want to achieve intelligent control, we must have models to accurately predict the indoor dynamics and influence factors. Looking into more detail about the framework to flag it, we developed two types of neural network models. The first is phase-informed neural network, and another is long-short-term memory neural network. They are used to predict the indoor dynamics and outer weather conditions respectively. Based on the predictive models, we then developed a hierarchical data-driven predictive control to optimize energy usage on both room level and system level. And then the advanced control strategy is evaluated in the simulation studies in which we compare the indoor environmental quality and energy usage between the environment and simulated cases. So for the framework development, we use the metadata from our advanced control test bed, which was at Lindenhof Labs on the main campus. And there were two student offices in the control test bed, and both are served with the offices are conditioned by two identical air units. The difference between the two offices is the size and the number of VAVs. So for our control framework, we use the office with the 4 big VAVs shown at the bottom in the figure. Among the predictive models, the most important model is one to predict the indoor dynamic. And we developed a physics-informed neural network predictors. And before I show the performance of the physics-informed neural network, I'd like to talk about the reasons of using physics-informed neural network. So typically, for people who develop a predictive control strategy, they will use a gray box model, which is based on thermal resistance and capacitance. Such model follows the physics law, but it requires expertise to develop, because the values of thermal resistance and capacitance are related to building material, which is different from building to building. And also, the combinations of thermal resistance and capacitance is unique for each building because each building itself is unique. And secondly, such a model has limited model behavior because it's typically a linear model and cannot have rich nonlinear behavior. And sometimes, such a behavior is very important for indoor air quality control. So the gray box model is not a scalable model, and the control strategy developed based on such model is cannot be implemented in a large scale. And to address the scalability issue, traditional black box model could be a candidate because it requires little expertise to develop, but it also has some drawbacks. First of all, it lacks the physical interpretability for the model behavior because, as its name suggests, we don't know what happens inside the black box. So we cannot guarantee if the model can give us accurate response to different control signals. And also, the traditional black box model lacks the guarantee of global optimal for optimal control. So some modifications are needed for the black box model if we want to use such type of the model. And therefore, in our research, we developed a novel physics-informed neural network to combine the advantage of two types of the model and also address the respective weaknesses. So the neural network model was informed by the physical model structure, and we trained our model using the survey data collected from our test bed and tested it in a 1-month simulation. Here we compare the model performance between our physics neural network and physics-based model for indoor temperature and carbon dioxide concentration prediction. It's very obvious that for both prediction, the physics-informed neural network outperformed the physics-based model. And besides the prediction accuracy, we also tested the model response with different control signals. And the results show that the physics-informed neural network had a similar response as the physics-based model. So after the development of the indoor dynamic prediction model, another important prediction model is to forecast the short-term local weather. So people may wonder why bothering to develop such a model, because there are a lot of weather forecast services online. And here are the reasons. If we look at the weather forecast service online, we will find that the highest forecast frequency on the website is ours. But for the predictive control, we typically control the HVAC system every 15 minutes. So hourly forecast is far less than enough to meet the control purposes. So some people will use the forecast from the nearby airports because it typically provides the forecast with higher frequency. But there is also the drawback. If we look at the weather forecast for the Hancock airports and the forecast for Syracuse University, we will find that there's a 10-degree temperature difference between the forecast of two locations. So the weather forecast at Hancock Airport is not representative enough for the weather at Syracuse University. And if we simply use the forecast from the airports, the control performance will be really lost. And the last reason is that the solar radiation is one of the influencing factors for the indoor environmental quality. But the solar forecast service is hardly available online. So based on these reasons, in our research, we developed our own weather forecast model to predict the outdoor air temperature and the solar radiation whenever we ask the model to do for the next 6 hours with 15 minutes time resolution, which is the same as our control frequency. So we train our model based on the LSTM with neural network structure and use a 2-year weather data collected from Syracuse University weather station. And here shows the single-day outdoor air temperature forecast. And here we compare the predicted value with the mild value. And we can see here there's almost no difference between predicted temperature and the mild temperature. The error is only 0.6%. And as for the solar radiation forecast, the mean square error is only 76 watt square meter, which is also accurate. And based on our best knowledge, our solar radiation forecast model outperforms most of models in research literature. And besides the single-day forecast, we also tested the model for continuous 1 month weather forecast. And here we choose the prediction distribution for different predictive steps, comparing with the distribution of the mammoth, which is the gray area in each plot. So for the outdoor air temperature forecast, even for different prediction steps, the distribution of the prediction is almost the same as the mammoth distribution, which indicates the very high accuracy of our weather forecast model. And similarly, for the solar radiation forecast, it exhibited the similar behavior, which also have a very high accuracy. So now we have models to predict indoor environmental dynamics and the influencing factors very accurately. And the next step is to develop the control strategy accordingly. So in our research, we developed a hierarchical data-driven predictive control strategy, which has 2 levels. And on each level, we have 1 controller. And the controller on room level will try to use as little space cooling load as possible to guarantee the indoor air temperature requirements. And then on a higher level, system level, the controller will use as little as coil loads to guarantee enough space cooling load and also guarantee the indoor air quality requirements. So we tested our advanced control strategy in the simulation case for 1 month, and here shows the statistics for the indoor environmental quality. And in the figure, the red color represents the mild data, and another colors represent the simulation cases. And we have 2 simulation cases. One is with 100% accurate weather information, and another is using our weather forecast model. And here it plots the blue dashed line are the requirements for the environmental quality. And compared with the environment, we can clearly see an improvement in both non-air temperature and carbon dioxide concentration. As for another aspect, which is energy usage, so comparing with the environment, there is a significant energy reduction on both room level and system level. And the average reduction is 30% on the room level and 70% on the system level. And if we compare the energy usage between the two simulation cases, we see there's almost no difference between the two cases due to our accurate weather forecast. So as for the reasons for such a significant load reduction, if we look at the control points in the system, here I show the total supply flow rate and fresh air intake. We will find that there's a clear shift for the air flow rate from hot period to the cool periods. And as for the other fresh air intake, we find that it is controlled more intelligently by our advanced control strategy, in which the recirculated air will dominate when the outer air temperature is hot, and when it is favorable, we will introduce more fresh air to the room. And when the outer air temperature is lower than 65 Fahrenheit, the fresh air intake will be adjusted dynamically to leverage the cooling. And that is where the significant load reduction comes from. So at the conclusion of our research study, we have developed the physics informed neural network for indoor environmental dynamics. And the model outperforms the physics-based model with physics consistent behavior. And our STM neural network can provide a very accurate control-oriented weather forecasts. And based on the predictive models, our hierarchical data-driven predictive control strategy provided a significant energy saving while meeting non-environmental quality requirements. And as our future work, we will implement our advanced control framework from the test bed on the main campus to the test bed in COE level 3. And we will also incorporate the outcome of the project 1 into our control framework. And thank you all for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity from Syracuse COE. And now I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
So a couple of questions. Why not a weather station on the roof that gives you instantaneous information for your weather conditions? And that way you don't really need to predict, but it could be part of the control system where it's actually you're using those measurements.
Actually, we are control the system just based on the current weather information. It is not enough because like for the building material, it has the thermal capacity, that's all those things. So that's the reason we need the predictive control. So we are not only leveraging the weather forecast, but also leveraging the thermal property of the building.
And then secondly, how are we assuming that there's a correlation between the 2.5 and viral loads? If you knew the 2.5 exterior and the 2.5 interior, could that become a control mechanism for turning on air cleaning capability that would, if it's not needed, then save the energy, right? But if those levels get out of balance, there are more things to control.
Oh, that's a great question. So that is one of our future work. So we will incorporate the outcome from the project from our training project into our new framework and test it. We will have to more clear answer for it.
following up on that question, is a great question. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I've been working with a Jianshun company in the drone space called True Weather. And they've been extremely successful with being able to provide local real-time, almost real-time weather conditions for flights of unmanned units. And they could do a lot of what is necessary, and maybe if we need to expand to address this to the building management system. Because right now we're not ASHRAE saying exchange with indoor air 6 times an hour, right? Well, what about the conditions of the outside? Every aspect of the outdoor, the rooms, temperature, humidity. But anyways, if you don't know about true weather, we should get an introduction.
I think it would be very interesting to look into how that can be applied in the control.
So they do very accurate local weather forecasts, because that's so critical to flying cars.
I think it should be.
Yes. So not in this project, in another project owned by DOE, we look at two weather forecasting materials. So one is for IBM. IBM have very accurate weather on 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid, and also true weather this company. So we actually developed another algorithm which already 5 patents there. So it's much more accurate than IBM weather. So it's more statistical based, but not on this project. I'm very open to talk to true weather, see how what's the grade they have. So our grade is more fine grade. So we down to 100 meter by 100 meter grade into the building level. And the IBM weather is 100 meter by 100 meter grade. It's much larger grade. Just let you know.
Well, give me your card and I'll make that. Thank you.
And just to maybe follow up that a little further, if you've got accurate, immediate data from your building, and you incorporate that with a number of buildings, then that could be used to predict more accurately than the spatial data that you have. So localize the data collected would seem to be a good tool to do predictive. We know where it is, we know what's coming, we know what's happening 6 buildings downwind or upwind. So we know what's coming, hopefully in enough time that the building can adjust for what's about to hit.
Did you see the newspaper? We just got another. We're one of the top 10 cities for pollen in the country. Did you see that? That'd be great.
No sound is power. Real good.
Great question. We are also interested in developing the test bed, so we have distributed sensors in urban environment. So that will address your question. Any other question for
So I mostly residential like PhD, so with this taken into account, it kind of brought up the ASHRAE standards and obviously building volume and occupant and how many everything versus the outdoor air quality and how many times that's going to run. So is there any way to make up for, say, the texture, that air quality outside? We don't want to bring it up to that inside. And then when the air quality doesn't improve outside, increase your airflow into the house, kind of bring that fresh clean air back in to bring it up to what it has to stand.
So I assume you're asking like the scenario with the auto. I thought it was not that this. I'm not sure about my understanding.
So I guess I'm not understanding exactly what you're measuring. What you're measuring for the particulate and CO. And then what you're basing your airflow on, or what are the indicators?
CO2.
That's kind of my question. What are the indicators that say, okay, the air quality is bad outside to let air in, versus do we then have to increase our airflow to make up for those times where we're shutting the air clean off?
Yeah, we have, so for outdoor air quality, we will have to measure those pollutants typically that regulated by EPA. So you have PM 2.5, you have NO, NOx, ozone, so those have to be measured in TBAT. And indoor to with that CO2. As well, we will see.
Your exchange rate then based off
Yeah.
indoor air
There
quality more.
was a study actually looking at the product integrating ventilation and air filtration based on the measurement. And we actually using this field aspect to see whether we can save energy. Based on the outdoor weather conditions, pollution conditions, as well as indoor occupant. That's demand based. Okay.
What is the role of occupancy prediction? Does occupancy data measuring information matter to better energy efficiency?
Oh, that
Excellent question. Yes.
That is a real question. So we have developed that model, and we have installed the people coming sensor as the instance of the obvious. So, but that due to the pandemic, we didn't have that model in those slides, but we have that model. Yeah. And it can give us a really good idea that we have research to consider the impacts from the occupancy.
Yeah. So, so the role of occupants is twofold. One is occupancy decision, you know that, right? So we can actually predict the sleep pattern based on occupancy. The other thing is the occupancy-based issues controls. So the occupancy-based issues controls in another project found by R&D proves that you can actually demonstrate it can save 7% of HVAC load. If you control this based on occupancy patterns in the space, like say the number of people in the space, the living people in the space, these are two important questions.
That's what density does.
Yes,
Not successful local government.
I know.
Okay.
I'm wondering, for these presentations, are there slides available or any reports or things?
We will have a recording, with its slide, you know.
Reports are subject to review later will come out. We can take some more time. There are papers, published papers, for example, occupancy. Yeah, Professor Dong actually had a lot of effort, international effort to develop the database for actually occupancy model. Behavior. Okay, with that, let's thank speaker one more time. Thank you. Okay, so I think we before we get into we still have another activity, which is the tour. So we have a new lab, new indoor air quality lab for building under science and technology lab, which Professor Zhang is residing and using for a lot of the experiments. He will do a quick tour of that lab afterwards. And before that, I just okay. Yeah, just thank you for the attending and also people on the web. We do have a research day. Well, let me announce the two things. One is in April, we have another R&T forum, which will be focused on urban integrated test bed, air quality test bed. So a lot of ideas about where do we sense, distribute sensors, how do we use that information to understand the urban air quality, and that's one. And then the second thing is that in May, we will have a first time we got a Syracuse CoE partner study. to the presentations to networking lunch and very second. In that research day, we're going to highlight and feature some important projects, like large projects, for example, electric heating technologies. And we have a couple of projects that are in that area. One is the solar project, sponsor, and other one is the sponsor projects. And I just got this as an RFP today, Building America, DOE has announced that Building America program, which is focused on the community-based electric heating project. So we're looking for proposal. The COE would be very interested in talking with those faculties and even the industrial partner and see whether we can come up with a proposal team. And we look at the team, actually both research, not just researchers, but also the implementers, community leaders. So it's interesting project that we make come out with a proposal to pursue that opportunity. So with that, I thank you again for coming to this seminar. I think it's very interesting and a lot of great discussions. With some refreshment outside, help yourself, continue some networking, and as well as the lab tour that we led by Professor Zhang. Thank you.